Well, I'm here in the other room at the keyboard. I felt like a change. I'm at the front of the house. I can see the street. It's a nice change. The instrument, not as good, obviously, but a change of space. We're spending a lot of time indoors these days, and so thought I would change it up. But I am looking here at the G sharp minor Prelude and Fugue by Bach. This is from Book 2 of the Well-Tempered Clavier. I got my Henley edition here. G sharp minor. That's no walk in the park. 5 sharps to play in there. Awful lot of double sharps here. I have not played this before. My goal is to learn all of them, but that's going to take me a while, a few years. But I was looking this one over, and I thought I would just, again, I cannot play it. I'm looking at it and scribbling in things as I go. I just started this, and I thought I would kind of just make like a vlog or just have this on casually, and I'll just sort of hack away at this and pencil things in and comment on some of the things I notice and that I want to bring out in an eventual performance. But for one thing, I was noticing this piece starts with, I don't know if this is loud enough, with a little chords in the left hand. This, and then again a couple bars later. Those, my score does not have a roll indication, but I think it's I think I would certainly want to roll them, but not the same way on both occasions. Maybe the first one is a bit more commanding. No, I gesture a lot with my hands and arms too, because I feel the sound that I make or that I want to make is not here, but here in the space in front of me, like bubbles or squishy blobs, and I want it. It's a three-dimensional, tactile kind of thing. The sound that I hear, and I want to push it and squeeze it and mold it like it's I don't know, something foam and malleable, but obviously the keys are solid plastic, and on a piano you've got the wood. You can't really bend wood with your hand or plastic, but that's the feeling when I'm gesturing at the piano. I notice since I've been making more videos during the pandemic that I do a lot more conducting, as it were, not literally conducting, but conjuring of the sound in space, mostly with my left hand because I'm left-handed. I think it's less. It's trying to do those gestures with my right hand is kind of like trying to write with my right hand. Like it's a very awkward, slow process. Although there's some gestures that I do want to kind of coax with my right hand, but I'm very left-hand dominated. I'm a southpaw, and so anyhow, yeah, these slight little roll in these chords with a commanding one in the beginning, I think is nice. And then we get it again, but maybe not quite as commanding, maybe a little bit more of like a tighter roll, as opposed to there's more space I find between the opening roll, the notes of the opening roll, and less space in the notes of the roll in bar 3, if you choose to roll them. Of course, my teacher used to talk about how, rolls are expected. Rolls. You don't just play a solid chord. You roll it. You play one note after the other. And there's all sorts of places that one can add, and probably should add, rolls in Bach. But anyhow, getting on with this, I was playing through this next part and noticing that lovely little clash. The F double sharp in the left hand against the G sharp in the right hand. Ooh, that's very pungent, and it's nice to enjoy that. On these little two-note slurs, they're little appoggiaturas, of course, but it's almost like a two-note slur. Of course, you want to stress the first one and less on the second one, but you do want to, at least my ears, they want to hear the tops of the end of those two note slurs. I sing a lot. It's so helpful. I have a terrible voice. Probably sound like one of the Alvin and the Chipmunks. But singing is one way to really make sure that your fingers are doing the proper work. Anyhow, we go along. We get the same. Then we get it again a little higher. Same thing. In the left hand, we get a lot of the D sharp over and over in the thumb, and a little bit of changing in the bottom notes. And then it gets a bit more adventurous at measure 5. I think in those you want to certainly have less thumb. Over and over is not so interesting as putting some arm into the bottom notes. In this case, I'm playing them with my fourth finger. And again, you can sing these. Measure 4, G sharp, to La, to F double sharp, La, La, La. It's a little low. La, 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 La. We're in a sequence here. It repeats again, a step down. La, 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 La. Repeats a third time. La, 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 la. Those are the notes that I think need to emerge. So if we were to extract those, boom. That's nice stepwise motion from the left hand, and then combined with the sort of extracted important notes of the right hand being those ones, those the ends of those two note slurs. Something like that. It's never etched in stone. But these are some general things that I know I would be listening for if I were, and eventually will be, practicing this one and performing it, hopefully. So we got through that sequence. So let's hear the then a nice 5-1 cadence. And then some more things start to happen. Whenever you have this accompanimental type stuff, we get it later on. You don't want to have, or at least I think it's less delicious to the ears, if you're playing all of those notes equally. Evenly, yes, but not equally. Because as we saw, there was notes on the bottom here, in this case, that are changing, which are far more interesting and delightful to the ear than just repeating the same note with equal volume. We can give those less, and of course that involves having a thumb that's capable of playing one level of sound, like a piano or a pianissimo, a very quiet level, and then the other fingers, finger 4 perhaps, or 5, playing of a more mezzo forte or mezzo piano, a louder sound. So that takes independence of fingers to do that, certainly. And that's something that you have to practice. I know I use these exercises. These are the essential finger exercises by, the last name is listed up here at the top, Dafnányi. Is a Hungarian, Ernest Dafnányi. And I came across these exercises, this edition, Editio Musica Budapest, but it's also on the IMSLP site. You can download it for free. I don't go through all of them. In fact, most of them I have not even looked at. There's lots. Wow. The chicken was crossing the page that day with muddy feet. But I mostly use the front 10, 12 exercises or so, the first 15 pages of the book, basically, because I came across these reading something or other from Rosalind Turek, and of course she was a terrific Bach pianist. She's no longer alive, but she was one of the dominating Bach pianists of all time. She lived in the 20th century, recorded a lot, always very exquisitely dressed as well. She just had, and she could speak so effortlessly and with great articulation. Her ornaments, I think, at the piano were just stunning, and she was an influence upon Glenn Gould, and so that's another thing that kind of attracted me to her. But she had recommended these essential finger exercises for building strength and independence of fingers, because you really do need to be able to play pianissimo, in your thumb, maybe mezzo forte in this finger, perhaps mezzo piano in this second finger, simultaneously. That's really what advanced pianism is about. And of course, the foot working very subtly. Pedaling in Bach, I know there's a lot of teachers who are like, that's verboten. You don't do that. I'm not one of those people. I feel like Bach was an open-minded man. And he loved inventions. He was very interested in instruments and was very knowledgeable about them. And while he did not live to see the modern piano, or heaven forbid the digital keyboard, I think he would have been very interested. And if we're going to play this music on a modern day instrument that has the pedals, well, we might as well use them. It's like driving a car and insisting, no, I'm only going to feed it hay. No, that's for the horse. This is the gas or the battery if you have a green vehicle charging. Anyhow, but I do find with Bach, because there's nothing worse than muddy, over-pedaled playing. And so less is more, quarter pedals, And on places like these two-note slurs, I think it's nice to add a touch of pedal, just to warm the sound. You can't hear it too much on this keyboard. Pedal, pedal. You could even add a touch of pedal on both of the notes of that two-note slur / arpeggio. Pedal, 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 pedal. Lots of pedalings, and whenever you have a chord, whether it's a solid chord or a rolled chord that you've decided to add, definitely give it a touch of pedal. Otherwise, it's a little bit harsh, especially if you're playing from the elbow and it's kind of a slapping gesture as opposed to using some flexibility of the wrists and weight transfer of the upper body. But carrying on with this, let's see, what have we got? I haven't made, this is a 4-page prelude. I haven't made my way through the whole thing. I'm just kind of nearing the halfway point. But I'm noticing there's quite a few sequential moments. We've just seen one. Third time. And then it goes on and does something new. Actually, no, we get another sequence there right after that at measure 8. Repeats again the second time. And then we get another one, a little bit different. Like sequences can go up, they can go down. There are more of them in this piece to come. Bach uses them a lot. There are some pieces of his that have no sequences or next to none, like the B major, what is it, the B major fugue from book 2. I was just looking at that the other day, which is, hang on, not book 2, book 1. Oh, with 48 of these things, it gets very hard to remember which is which. Yes, the B major fugue from book 1, that's fugue number 23. It has no sequences in it, none that I could find. Just barely one at measure 14 and 15. But we get oodles of them. You know, if we think of something, one of the more perhaps familiar pieces, the F major Invention. Here. Here, this is the spot I'm thinking of. So a sequence. Repeats down a step, repeats down a step, then we get another sequence, down a step. Now, he uses it a lot. I'm not sure I can swear to this or take an oath, but I seem to be noticing that there are, the bulk of Bach's sequential material is in the earlier to middle period things, pieces. Anyhow, my feeling is that when you have a sequence in Bach, and it's the moment in the piece generally where the layman is like, oh, that's catchy, I like that, you know, and they're bobbing their head. At those moments, the sequences, I think Bach is trying to tell us, and to try to tell the listener, that the music is relaxing there. It's taking a bit of a rest. It's giving the ears a rest, because otherwise, when there is no sequential material, the music is changing in a sequence. We get a little pattern that's copied and copied and copied and copied, either up or down by step. That's sequential. But non-sequential material is much more developmental. It's like an argument, something is being said, a point is being made, and then the sequences are kind of like a chance for your ears to sort of get up and stretch your legs, go to the washroom, get a drink of water, and to sort of process what you just heard. And I think that should be heard and manifest itself in the touch and the tone, so that when you get to a sequential passage, it's not equally dense and thorny and heavy and thick and God forbid, harsh and aggressive. You know, we want a little bit of lightness is nice, while at the same time hearing those long notes, especially when they're at the end of a 2-note, 8th note gesture. And hearing those changing notes in the bass. Hearing those things, yes, but with a lighter touch. And of course, the exercises help to make the finger strength needed to produce that kind of sound. I think to get finger strength, I found anyway for me, I have to practice in a way that's most unpleasant to listen to. I have to go very deep into the key. I had a teacher at Eastman School of Music who would use the phrase high finger, meaning that when you're practicing a passage, typically that goes, very fast and light and sparkling, you practice it extremely slow and loud, deep into the key. Not only that, but with a high finger. So lifting it practically as high as you can, and then that's a way to build strength, and that certainly is important. As is a application of a loose upper body, so all of those things are combined, but we do get these sequences. I was looking at this spot at the end of coming out of measure 11. And then this is very chromatic. There's accidentals all over the place. Woo! But here, and it's kind of a sequential moment too. But I think what's nice to bring out at the end of 11 and through 12 are these skips or these thirds in the left hand. And I forgot to mark that one in. Always have a pencil handy so that you can mark things in. I'll show you some. It's even if it's a double sharp that you just can't seem to remember. I write in arrows when there's a note, like a horizontal arrow. When there's a note I want to be sure I listen for, I mark in the sequential passages. Like here's one. This is very rare. We have actual dynamic markings, piano and forte. Of course, book 2 was written published in 1744. You can mark in cadences. I started doing that with one here. Fingerings, I've noticed in this edition, which is a much more recent one than my Henley edition for book 1. I think this one was published in the 70s. I got it in the 90s. You can see I wrote my name, September 1995. That's when I got that. But that edition is actually, I think, quite a bit better, more useful, because this newer one has been edited, or fingerings have been provided by Andras Schiff. Now he's a remarkable pianist. I really love his playing of the German Romantic composer Mendelssohn, Schumann. I remember hearing him at the Royal Conservatory, and the colors and delicacy. I'm not as fond of his Bach, I have to say, but his fingerings, they're all over the place. Which is probably an attractive selling point for a lot of people. They say, important pianist, and look at all the fingerings. Wow, all that's work we don't have to do. We don't have to figure out fingering. But actually, Andras Schiff's hands are not like my hands. They're not like your hands. And frankly, I just think they get in the way a lot of the time, and I end up having to scratch them out. My teacher, Constance Keene, used to say, scrape fingerings out of the books. Anything that's been put in by an editor, scrape it away. And this older first book 1 publication has much fewer fingerings, so it's a cleaner page. And also the fingerings that are there, at least for my hands, are a better fit than Andras Schiff's. So I just have to kind of ignore his fingerings. But I think those thirds there, when you have a repeated rhythm, this is the rhythm. It's not terribly inventive, right? It's just a series of eighth notes. Rhythmically, this is very unexciting. Melodically, it's very exciting because it goes up and then it goes down by a skip. It ascends by a larger interval, goes up by step, and then skip. It's very ornate and decorative, much like the pillars you might see or like a Bernini sculpture or something with very decorative and swirling kind of figures, and or like on a Chippendale chair and there's the claw, on the bottom of the leg of the chair that goes over the ball, and every gnarly kind of bits. I think the contour of intervals in Bach's music is perhaps one of the most remarkable features of this music. The variety of intervallic content is so interesting. Rhythmically, as I say, much of it is not terribly exciting. Like this. If you were to just take the rhythm, that's not, I mean, I could pull a squirrel off the street and they would, that, but when you look at the intervals, this major sixth going down by step, another major sixth, up again, down. It creates these circular swirl-like gestures, and to me that's so much why I need to move at the piano, because I'm almost seeing the sound in space, and I'm seeing it in a three-dimensional way. And a lot of that just comes from having a certain amount of imagination when you look at intervals, and not just see them as steps on the page going up or down, but living, breathing shapes that an architect might use to build on, or a dancer might use in their gestures. If they need to extend their arm, they're not just gonna throw it out as a whatever. There's some thought to it, and there's an infinite number of ways you can extend the arm. I'm no dancer, as you can tell, but I feel that and see it and hear it with the sound. So in any kind of repetitive passage in Bach, look for where there's variety and shape around that. Go to those points and back off the rest. There's some trills here too. At 18, sorry. Again, I'm just looking at this so I don't know my notes. This is actually probably one of the most fun parts of practicing, is when you look at a new piece and you try to get in your hands and decipher how you want to use your body to make things happen. But these little trills, probably there are the easy way sort of out of that, and I think I've heard students do this before, is to play it before the beat. So if the beat is boom, 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 you tend to hear students play. So that trill has begun before the snap or before the beat. But actually in this music, in Bach's music, it's more stylistic to trill on the beat, to make your ornament on the beat, which is actually a little harder in some cases. This one, if you're going to play this at a fairly lively tempo, then yeah, that's going to be a little trickier than playing it before the beat. My teacher, again, Constance Keene, whom I really adored, she used to say that in Bach's music you must trill on the beat or you will be shot dead. So that the trill is being initiated at the same time as the left hand on the beat. You have to fit the notes in faster into a smaller period. But I think it's much more tight and delicate and nimble, and therefore enticing to the ears. So we got those little guys. when you're trilling, I mean, depending on which fingers you use, it could be a lot easier than other times. Um, I think a lot of students tend to see the little squiggle symbol, that means trill, um, and they think uh, this is the symbol we're talking about here. This little, right? Looks like a little W with an added squiggle. Or you might see the TR for trill. But in Bach, this is generally what we see. But I think a lot of students tend to see a trill regardless of the character of the piece, the tempo, the mood, the color, whatever, all these abstract notions, and they say a trill is a trill, and it's fast. Maybe they can't always play it fast, but they see it and hear it as fast. But actually, I think it's wonderful to make a variety of speeds of trills. And so if you're playing like a saraband, like the aria of the Goldbergs, and you're playing it at this kind of tempo, your trills, such as this one, can be of a more languorous kind of flowing, spread out quality, as opposed to, well, this is at a slow tempo, but we're gonna make the trill really fast and it's gonna sound out of place. Like, it's nice if you can kind of match the speed of your trill. You can also manipulate the tempo, where you start the first couple of rotations kind of questioningly, and then they pick up speed, like the butterfly that's just like sensing the ground below it, and the wings are just starting to tremor, and then all of a sudden it's gone. So having some variety of speed in ornaments. But these trills, I think if you're going to play this piece at a kind of this tempo, these trills are going to be quite quick, quite tight. But to get the finger strength, again, those exercises are helpful. The high finger practice is helpful. Lots of massively slow practice, and separate too. If you have, for instance, one of these trills, even if it's a short one, because we want them clean and sparkly, it's a good idea to practice just a 2-note slur rather than multiple rotations, multiple spins, and just focus on as a 2-note slur, where the first note gets the push off, if you will, like you're jumping off a trampoline and you bend your legs and you want to get some height, or maybe you're on a swing at the park, and you have to kind of use your lower body to create some more motion. Push off on the front of on the first note of this 2-note slur, and then release and have the second one be lighter. And as you do that, physically drop from above. Feel, you can even just sort of hold your arm with the other hand. Let it be limp, loose, and heavy, as an arm is. Limbs are very heavy. And just let that natural weight fall onto the key. And then the gesture to release out of that into the second note is an upward gesture from the wrist. So let me move this down a little bit, getting the wrist comfortable with this kind of motion. Not that we're going to be doing this kind of thing in the finished performance, but at slow speed, slow practicing, yes. So you work on the 2-note slur, and let your whole body follow it too. This is how we practice a trill. Start with just 2 notes. kind of stress release. And then add another rotation, but still within the rhythmic framework of the two-note slur. So the push off, ya. You could even sing those two notes to get that melodic quality in your ear. Ya-dum, ya-dum, as opposed to singing da-da-da-dum. No, don't sing that. Just hear the essential two notes, not all the rotations. And then if that starts to feel good, then pick the tempo up. Again, I find it helpful to sort of conduct with the left hand. It just sort of like grabbing the sound out of the air and pushing it on its way. Little touch of pedal on the front of that. Pedal off, and then pick it up. And if it starts to sound lumpy, where you're getting the accent on the second note, like this, like someone falling down the stairs, we don't want that. We want to push on the starting note. Then go back to slow, and just the two notes, and then go through the process again. And it can be so helpful, but always with the wrist, the arm, the back, your legs, your quads, all of that. Never just the fingers, because then it sounds very like mechanical and just notey and Anyhow, I think that's probably a good spot to stop. This is plenty long as it is. We have another sequence, and then we got a double bar line. So yeah, we'll stop there. Anyhow, this is obviously very casual. I don't have my glasses on. I'm in my comfies here, and I'm at the keyboard. But I just thought I would sort of talk through some of the things that I'm thinking about as I look at a new Bach piece. I hope it was helpful. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.